How would your decision to buy or renew a season pass be affected if Kings Island reduced its 2025 operating calendar to, say, 9 p.m. closes Monday through Thursday, or the park was maybe closed on Tuesdays? Hello, everyone. Alongside Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans, because that's who we are and that's who we care about.
So, Ryan, this time last year, the operating calendar for 2024 had already been published through Labor Day.
Right.
It's not up there right now. There's a lot of discussion going on, not just related to Kings Island, but the other parks in the Six Flags chain, what they're going to do with operating calendars. Now, you and I, when this merger, was first being discussed all the way up until, went through, we said there's going to be a lot of things that would be impacted. We talked about operating calendars, budget cuts there and things. And looks like that could happen. We're not saying it is going to happen, but, what we do know, what we've been informed is that on the table, they are looking at, do we close at 9 o'clock Monday through Thursdays?
Mm-hmm.
Do we maybe just close on Tuesdays? Do we maybe just do the fireworks and drone show Friday through Sunday? Do we wait until Memorial Day to start daily operation? Do we stop daily operation on August 1st? So there's obviously a lot of things in play here, a lot of things they're discussing. They all have some kind of, ramifications, for this. Now, there are some that are going to say it doesn't bother me. I only go to the park for 3 or 4 hours a day. I'm there from 10 to 2. I don't care if they get it earlier. That's fine, but there's a lot of people. There's night rides on the Beast. That means a lot. They love that. That's where they go. That would be out of play, if they were closing at 9 o'clock throughout the summer on those Monday through Thursday nights. Tuesdays, a lot of people, that's their one day of the week that they go. On Tuesdays, they're off that day. So they spend the whole day at the park. They go to the water park part of the day and then spend the rest of the night in the hard park. If they're not open on Tuesdays, that throws a wrench into things. If they wait until Memorial Day to go daily, they've done that before. Historically, that's what they used to do. Back in the half days, didn't open for daily operation until Memorial Day, but it went all the way through August until Labor Day at that time. So you had a longer summer season than what you have right now. Some of the Six Flags parks last year, they did close on August 1st. They cited staffing issues, and that's, sure, if they cut back to these 9 o'clock closes, or they're closed on Tuesdays, or daily doesn't start until Memorial Day, I'm sure that they'll cite staffing issues. But you and I both know, we've talked to enough, employees, that associates, that they go into it being told they're going to get 40 something hours a week. It gets to be early June and they're only getting, 15 hours a week. It's a staffing issue because it's an issue because they won't staff it. They have the people to do it early in the year. They just choose not to have that drink stand open by the train. Some of the other drink stands around the park, some of the rides opening a little bit later in the day, or only one side operation. So it's something that they self-impose. It's not because they don't have the people to do it. They have people that want hours. They're just not giving them the hours. But let me ask you, Ryan, you haven't renewed your pass for next year yet.
No.
Would you wait until the calendar came out to see what you're getting?
I always wait until the calendar comes out to see what I'm getting. And in addition to that, I always wait until the menus are released before I purchase the all-season dining plan. There's two reasons for that. For one, I don't like the whole blind faith thing because terms are subject to change, and we've seen. I understood in 22 when they started closing at 9 because the Fun Fireworks in 50 was a very expensive show and it was a big deal and they wanted to debut it on Memorial Day weekend. But when they started doing it after that, that's when you kind of start thinking like, well, maybe they're thinking like, if people are okay with it, maybe we can do this a little bit more. There's also the possibility that they'll be open, Monday through Thursday until 9 until the core season, and then be open till 10. Because remember, they also cut the midnight close hours. There was like maybe 3 midnight closes on Saturdays in July.
Yeah, 3 or 4 that there wasn't. That was a big deal in July too. Everybody loved, the midnight closes. 4th of July was historically a midnight close. That hasn't been the case in the past couple of years. But I think what's happening here, it's pretty obvious that the park now caters to Wall Street. that's the customer now. It's not you and me and other people going to the park. You know, the guest experience is secondary now to satisfying Wall Street.
I think that is a dangerous claim to make. I'm not saying you're not correct, but if that's true, then they're heading down the path that the old Six Flags went down anyway, where, they forget that, the guest is at the core of the experience. And then from there, the money will roll right in. It's, they're going to have their expectations and, there's a lot of debt involved and stuff. But when it comes down to it, if they start upsetting people and they start turning people away and they start becoming less of a value, that's when they start to hurt themselves. And the old Six Flags did that. I mean, if you look at it, like when Six Flags had Kentucky Kingdom, it was just a nothing burger park. They bought it because they could get it cheap, and then they didn't want to invest in it after the first couple years. So I remember for a time it was cheaper to get a season pass than it was to get a daily ticket.
Oh yeah, I remember those days.
And I implore anybody listening that is anybody. I mean, you devalue your product. It's hard to climb back up from that. You remember.
Very much is.
I mean, I think that there's pros and cons to each one, but the reality is that Dollywood and Kings Island are kind of on the same level. And a Dollywood season pass is $200. A Kings Island season pass is like $85, or well, it's probably like $120, but still, it's definitely worth $200. But you could never charge that if you wanted to, unless you did it incrementally over a decade, because people are so used to paying lower prices, and then they'll do lower prices.
Yeah, you mentioned Dollywood. We saw over the last couple of years they keep adding more days to the calendar. I think last year was 23 something days were added to their operating calendar, more hours. A number of times, if you follow them on social media, you'll see that the park was supposed to close at say 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever time it might be, but because they had a big crowd, in order to make sure that they provided a great experience, they said, we're extending our hours tonight.
Mm-hmm. That happened last weekend. As of this recording, it happened last weekend.
Exactly. So, I mean, those are the kind of things that company does for its guests to make sure they have a premium experience. When was the last time you saw Kings Island say, oh, it's pretty crowded on this Saturday haunt night, let's give everybody an extra hour?
Not a Saturday haunt night. I do remember it happening. Probably you worked there, I believe, at the time. It was like a Sunday night when they were randomly stupid busy, and they extended till 11 o'clock. This was during the summer, I think.
Yeah, there's been that odd time, but lately, the last 2-3 years.
In the past decade now.
Yeah, in the last couple of years, it hasn't happened, as, the debt piled up and looking for different ways to cut things. And to me, I think one of the things that, instead of like closing at 9 o'clock or to possibly taking a Tuesday, and again, we're not saying this is going to happen. We're just saying that these things are on
these are being discussed. Both. I mean, we would say that our sources within the company tell us that these things are being discussed specifically for Kings Island, also other parks. But they were very transparent about it in their quarterly call.
Yeah, but it's being discussed. Not that it's going to happen, but it could happen. But to me, I think one of the things that they could do without really impacting, the guest experience by having a shorter day, closing at 9 or being closed on a Tuesday or closing during the week. I think this past year they closed, wasn't it like at 6 o'clock on those first couple of days, in May when they were open daily.
Yeah.
I think one of the things they could do is, if it says the park's open from 10 to 10, it's open from 10 to 10. At 10 o'clock, the rides stop. And that's what they did in the 70s and the 80s, during the Taft days, was they judged the lines and they made sure that the last trains, the last cycles, the last, that whether it was a scrambler, monster, dodging, whatever it was, right at 10 o'clock, that was the last ride. Then everybody watched fireworks and went home. When you say, as long as you're in line by 9:59, 59 seconds, that sometimes keeps the park open until 11:20, 11:30. By the time they clear the beast line out and everything, it doesn't open up again for 20, 30 minutes after the fireworks, depending on how long it takes for them to search the area. Some other rides have long lines. If you just closed at 10 o'clock, on paper, it still looks, on the calendar, everything looks great. Doesn't look like you cut anything. And that's the way it was for the longest time. And everybody went home happy, so it wasn't a big deal. You just knew and you understood if you wanted to ride the beast, be over there by looking at the day, might be 9:10. You wanted to make sure, you were there before they cut it. It could be 9:30, just depending on the crowd, but you couldn't get in line, right at that last second. And if, 3 or 4 train loads all come at the last minute, I mean, that keeps everybody there longer. I think that's one of the ways that, you can save on your operating expenses, is just by projecting your lines and making sure the park is closed at 10 o'clock, opposed to cutting off an hour and saying 9 o'clock, or cutting a day during the week. That's what I would do, just to make sure that that value was still there for the guest.
Yeah, but some of these things have become expectations. I don't remember a world where at Kings Island, if you like, they close the line early or whatever, unless it was under a special circumstance. So I wonder if that would be a huge customer service hit. Not that I guess really matters in the context of our discussion, but that would be a kind of a big shock.
I think you just let everybody know. You have to be transparent. You have to communicate that information before the park and you have to go back in the history and talk about, from 1972 to 1992, this is how it was, and I think you just have to kind of tap into that. You have to point to some other parks that do manage the lines that way. There's a lot of them out there that do. Mm-hmm. That, if you're not there within a certain, wherever the wait time is that day, if you're not in line by that to make sure you get on that last cycle of the night, you're on to the next ride to see what else you can get on that night. So I think it's if you travel around, you see it, that it exists out there. So I don't think it would be a bad thing. You might take some initial, some people might go on to the Season Pass Facebook group or comment on some of the Kings Island posts at first that, this isn't fair. I don't get there till 9:30 at night, that kind of thing. But, again, it's a way to, manage the expenses a little bit without really impacting the guest experience too much, because you would have all day to get in line and ride these rides if they were making sure everything was cleared out by 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. My big fear, though, is that, let's say they heed your advice. So next year, basically the same operating calendar, but like the Beast line closes at 9:20 or whatever. And so, and I really feel like the Beast, Orion, Diamondback, there's just a couple of rides that this would affect, I think. Because I think that you could, I mean, even ones that kind of get longer lines, like in Vertigo, just due to capacity, they're not going to have a line at 10 o'clock. But my fear, though, is you give an inch, you take a mile, and it works both ways. So maybe next year they have the same operating calendar. They close at 10, the lines get cut off. So the last cycle is at 10. And then in 2026, we close at 9 Monday through Thursday, and the lines get cut. And, historically from 1972 to 92, that's what we did,
Well, they never were, it was you knew what the operating hours were going to be. You knew that the park was going to be open until 10 o'clock during the week. You knew it was going to be open all the way through. It took a long time for people to know that the park was not open from mid-August on during the week until the last maybe 3 or 4 years. People were still just accustomed to the park being open all the way through Labor Day. They always thought that was called Dead Week, where you could come up and get a lot of rides in. Mm-hmm. So people just assumed they would come from, Huntington, Indianapolis, Columbus, wherever, and expect the park to be open, get there and see that the park's closed. All that they can do is just tell everybody, operating calendar has been posted, but people never looked at it because it was out of habit. They just always assumed for so long that was the way it was. But now you have to look at it every week to see if something's been changed, almost day to day now, because you just never know when something's going to get adjusted, because they are now, that's a serious thing when it says, dates and times subject to change without notice, because it has.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's subject to change without notice. But well, okay, let's explore the other side. What if they, 10 to 10, like the normal calendar, but they were closed Tuesday? I think that's the less likely scenario, because they get a double banger for the 9 o'clock thing, because not only do they get to send everybody home an hour early, but they also don't have to pay for fireworks and drones.
They do not have to do that.
At a huge sacrifice to guest experience.
You're also not giving away that second dining plan to a lot of people, if you're closing at 8 or 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's
So, but circling back to what this episode's about. I mean, our advice would be wait to see what the operating calendar is, so you're just not blindly, renewing, and then you're just happy with whatever they give you. I would wait to see what it is. I'm on the same page, with Ryan. I want to see what the dining plan options are before I renew the dining plan. I want to see, what the operating calendar is during the summer months. So I would, know when I could go, or, plan around different things. And, um, but that's just me. That's just you, that we would wait. I mean, other people, they're going to renew no matter what. And they just, take whatever they get. But I do think, you do have a say as a guest, and as long as, you continue to just fork it over without question,
Mhm.
these are the kind of things that get talked about, because they know, well, they're still going to be there. They love Kings Island. They're still going to come.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a toxic relationship in some regards because we know that they know that you'll whine all you want in the season pass group and here on Tower Topics on KI Central, but ultimately you'll buy that pass. So what I would implore you to do if you have not yet purchased your pass is, first of all, wait till the operating calendars sent out. They'd be fools. Here's the thing: they should have an operating budget by the end of the year, and that way they can put out the calendar. If they don't do that, then they're not being transparent. They're doing it on purpose to see how many passes they can sell without losing them.
Yeah.
But
And
also,
that's the other thing too. You use the word being transparent.
Mhm.
I don't think anyone holds it against you if they are transparent and they do have these reduced hours, and they
Mhm.
say why it really is those reduced hours, instead of staffing, it's hard with kids in school, we just can't staff it. You can, because we know that there was enough people hired, you just didn't give out the hours to staff it.
Well,
We
not
know
just
that.
that. I mean, I remember, an ill-advised tweet from somebody that speaks on behalf of the park saying, like, "Yo, you work for a great employer when everything is staffed." And I'm
Always
sorry,
that.
no, no, we're not. No, no, you work for a great employer when we're not even hiring anymore. And of course, I replied, "Oh, great! Does that mean that every food stand will be open and both sides of the racer and everything?" Which got me blocked because
Got you blocked. I remember that.
that was an ill-advised tweet, but wait, blocked on LinkedIn, not
Well,
on.
ill-advised reply too, because you can't question things to some people, right?
Yeah, well, that's neither here nor there. They know who we're talking about, but yeah. So, the transparency is going to be questionable. What we're really going to know, and because there are some within Kings Island that have been known to be a little sneaky. That if you start seeing Carowinds, Kings Dominion, and all the other Six Flags parks posting their calendar, and Kings Island has not yet, that's a pretty good indicator that they're intentionally withholding it. But as I was saying before, I've got two pieces of advice if you haven't bought your pass yet.
Mhm.
First, wait, because you want to see that operating calendar. Um, some people will buy it no matter what. I completely understand. But you're also sending the message to them that you're going to wait to see what you're buying before before you shill out money. Um, but the second one is you don't have to buy it from Kings Island. In fact, I'm hearing more and more people buying them from Canada's Wonderland. And because of the exchange rate, they're saving a ton of money, especially if you're getting that season long fast lane stuff. So long as you're getting the all park passport, you can get it at any park. And well, as we saw with Cedar Point last year with Top Thrill 2, you had to be a Cedar Point Gold or Prestige pass holder to get the Top Thrill 2 preview. So they're probably going to do the same thing with Siren's Curse. So in Canada's Wonderland, by the way, with I can't think Alpen Fury, whatever it's called.
Albuquerque, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're probably going to do the same thing. So what I would do is always buy your pass if you're a traveling person, of course. Always buy your pass from the park that's putting in the good new capital. Decide which one you want to do the preview for, and take your bet on that one. Because the Top Thrill 2 thing wasn't announced until super late. I know that a lot of people aren't going to wait that long, but with this one, like, man, you can definitely get two for the price of one, of saving money by buying it out of Canada with the all park passport, and then possibly getting invited to their thing. Because we know that Kings Island is not investing in the park. You have zero benefit from buying from Kings Island. Yeah, you get the pass perks for your home park, but who cares? That's irrelevant. So I would, if you don't feel comfortable making an international transaction, it's really not that big of a deal. Then buy it from Cedar Point if you have to buy it sooner, like if it's a gift or something, because you might be able to ride Siren's Curse early, or even King's Dominion with Reptera.
Yeah.
But don't buy it from Kings Island unless they're adding like a good new coaster. And even let's say they put something in the Vortex plot and it ends up being like a B+ thing, let's say like another Orion or something. If there's another park in the chain that's adding something that you're more interested in, like perhaps, Six Flags Great Adventure, possibly with a $50 million expansion over the next couple of years, consider buying it from them. If they're going to play this game, you have to play the same game they're playing, or else you're the one who gets left out. I would have gone to that Top Thrill 2 preview had I known that if I bought a Cedar Point season pass, then I could have gone to it. I would have bought my pass out of there instead of Kings Island.
Yeah, that's a smart move. But you look at some of these other parks. Holiday World's calendar is already out.
Mm-hmm.
If I renew my pass now, and I will. I know what I'm getting already. Dollywood has already released, it's events and everything else about it. So I know what I'm getting, with those two parks. If I renewed my Kings Island pass today, I don't know what the calendar looks like. I can't even.
We don't even know opening day. Usually by the end of normal operations, like October, they at least had opening day, even like way back in the day. But I think that you're right. It's quite possible that opening day may be in May this time.
I doubt that. I mean, I don't, again, these are just, we're not saying all this is going to happen, but we do know that there's going to be some cut somewhere because they have to.
Well, yeah. And it might not at all affect Kings Island. Like, let's not gloss over that. It's quite possible that Michigan's Adventures open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday only, but Kings Island retains their hours or whatever.
Now the other thing, while they're talking about maybe not going daily until Memorial Day, and that is one thing that's also on the table, and I think this would be something that Kings Island fans would enjoy because the weather's normally pretty good at that time of the year, but there's not going to be those weekends off between Haunt and the start of Winterfest. They would do what some of the other parks do, and they would continue to have it open those weekends like Carowinds does, and just roll into Winterfest. And things are in transition. They're in transition between the two events and that, but there were some good crowds that weekend that they were open. Was it November 1st through the 3rd?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the weather the last couple of weekends was still pretty good. So that would be something, if they add in those dates, would you take those 2 weekends in place of the daily operation starting in mid-May? I don't know. Some people would. Maybe they don't go this week.
I mean, I'm just one person. I'm not going to make a strong case against it. But for me, it's kind of cool to have these little breathers in there, like between Labor Day and Halloween Haunt. It's nice to have a couple weeks off where it's like I'm not tempted to visit and stuff. Then you see the park in a whole new way by going to Haunt, and then when Haunt's over, you wait a couple weeks, and then it's Winterfest. I do not. If they do that, then that's another lie we've caught them in, because I was led to believe that if you want to be open those weekends, Winterfest isn't going to be ready. Although King's Dominion kind of figured that out, and it's kind of an identical event. Carowinds. But Carowinds, all this stuff of like, well, if you want this, and you better be willing to sacrifice that. It really kind of goes down the toilet when they have like, other parks that can do it, and especially like Knott's, which is 364 days a year. It's like, well, why don't you talk to the guys out west? They figured it out. I understand there are more moving parts and stuff than that, but to act like it's impossible because you don't want to do it is just a lie.
But I really hope of all of this, though, the one thing is that they don't stop on August 1st with daily operation. I really hope that doesn't happen. I do know when they first released their calendar last year, it was only going to August 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And then they added in some days after it was released. But I really hope that doesn't happen because, it's still summer. People are still on vacation. People still want to go out and do things. And if you're stopping there, I really think only having, 60 days of operation during the summer, I think that would in time be pretty detrimental to them down the road by going that route.
I think it would be detrimental right off the bat. And here's why. August 1st. What are they trying to do at that point? Sell next year's season passes. You going to sell next year's season passes to a park that's closed for the next 3 weeks? or I don't see it working out the way that the bean counters might think that it's working, and it's like, but the thing though is I know that, when they, was it August 7th that they stopped this past year and they added the extra weekend
Well,
or
it's
whatever?
August 6th, I think, was when it
August
was the
6th.
cutoff date, but then they added back in the next week into the calendar.
So I I've heard different stories of they wanted to see if they could staff it. They wanted to see if they could get the budget to run it and stuff. The conspiracy theorist in me thinks that maybe they cut it and they were going to say, okay, if people complain about it enough, we'll just add it back. Do you think that's possible from your perspective of having worked in the park?
Yes. See what people
Yeah.
say first, and we have this there if we need it. If we don't, we'll keep it out. But yeah, there was a lot of grumbling that it was only going to be open until August 6th daily. So imagine if it's August 1st, or even if it's, I guess that Sunday would be August 5th this year or in 2025. So I don't think you can cut back any more than they have with the number of days that are being offered. I think they got to be careful. It's this monster they've created with as many season passes as Kings Island has. That people expect to be able to use those passes, at these different times of the year now, and you got to deliver.
You do have to deliver, and it's the response, of course, as opposed to doing the right thing and giving the best possible value, is to lower the price of the season pass. That's the trap they're going to fall into, because it's just a lack of imagination and creativity. But yeah, I guess it remains to be seen. I wouldn't be surprised if August 5th is the date, and then people are like, what the hell? And then they add another weekend, and then it's still kind of a week daily operating schedule, but at least it's not horrible. But if you ever want a testament to, people, raising their voices about something and then it affecting change, then there you go. Because,
but
if they start doing the 9 o'clock closes, if they start doing the 9 o'clock closes, it's going to affect a lot of people, because there are a lot of people that like to go after work. You get out of work and you hit traffic and stuff, and by the time you get to the park, it's 7:30. If they close at 9, it's not worth your time. If they close at 10, they do. Now, on one hand, that destroys the value to the pass holder. On the other hand, though, the park saves that 80 cents on that pub burger you might have gotten. Right. So I guess we'll see kind of which direction it goes with that. But it is a little concerning that the schedule has not been released yet. But I'm not ready to jump to conclusions until the other parks, the peer parks, release their calendars, and then Kings Island still hasn't, although Kings Island does kind of play by their own tune. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah. So like scooting along here, Don. So let's do a little bit of an update. So 75 days, almost said 75 years, 75 days since you had a very unexpected, although never really expected, stroke. You lost vision in an eye. Since then, it's been doctor's appointments, a couple surgeries. You've had nights when you didn't feel well, nights when you felt
laser
great,
procedures,
laser stuff like
so
that.
every other week I've had a laser procedure for like the last 3 weeks, and it's just yeah, I mean it's a lot, but like I said, I'm resilient and I'm going to show up, which I've done for all these episodes. I haven't missed one.
Yeah, you are getting your perfect attendance certificate, and you have all your vacation days left from the Tower Topics podcast, because you haven't used any of sick days. So let me ask you this, Don. And obviously this isn't news to you, because we heard this independently, and this is just a perfect example. But one of your former coworkers was referring to you as Cyclops. That sounds kind of distasteful, doesn't it?
Ryan, you look at some of the things that have gone on, since I departed. We had situations where content creators were being told, you have to distance yourself from Don if you want to be on our media list, and you're going to have to prove yourself by not interacting with any of his content, or if you're friends with him, you can't be friends with us, all that kind of childish type behavior. So there's been different things like that. You and I know that Tower Topics, both of us personally, we've been besmirched and all that kind of stuff,
right?
Which is okay. And then you hear this one, oh, you're referred to by a former coworker as Cyclops. And um, what I can say is this, I may have vision in one eye, but my integrity is still intact.
Yeah, I mean, at least you have vision in one eye. Your integrity is still intact. You're telling the truth. It's not like somebody that claims to be a super Christian girl and then goes around saying this. Very unprofessional, by the way. That's all we're going
Yeah.
to say about that,
But
though.
like I said, it's, I mean, it's just, and it's such a small world,
Yeah.
the content creators and that it doesn't take much, um, before it all circles back to you. I think what happened, in my situation is we did an episode where we talked about, as a content creator, that your credibility was, more important, in dealing with your audience, that's who you owed it to versus catering to what the park wants you to do, just to be on that media invite list. And I think that rang home with some people. And then, you know, someone started coming out of the woodwork. Hey, just want to let you know what was going on. If, one of the reasons I wasn't interacting with your content anymore because I was told I couldn't if I wanted to be on their list.
Yeah.
I was told I had to distance myself from you. I got flack because I posted a picture of you and me in the park. That I was told you got to choose a side, him or us, that kind of stuff. And it's just, I don't know why some people have to feel compelled to go about it that way. I had a great 17 years working there. I had a great relationship basically with just about everybody at the park. Had one person that wasn't a fan, and they let me know that pretty much up front when they first got there. But for the most part, I mean, everybody, including the person that was telling people they couldn't interact with me on social media, unless they wanted to be off the list. I mean, I recommended that person be hired and stuff. So it's just mind-boggling to me sometimes when things get back to us, and sometimes it's from that community, which is not very big. It doesn't take long for stuff to travel around, but the majority of the time it comes from internal, people that are on the Six Flags payroll that want us to know with what's being said and everything. And I think that they feel it's ridiculous, but they can't really stand up and say anything, because it'll be backlash, at them. I had, when my daughter, when announced that, she was pregnant and I was going to be a grandfather, I was at the park and somebody came up to me and they said, congratulations. I really wanted to comment on your social media post, but had I done that, I'd have been accused of choosing sides. And I said, I'm sorry, you have to live in a world like that.
Yeah.
And they told me you have no idea, so it's, I just wish it really wasn't like that, Ryan. I wish there was, that would all go away, and that part of our, every week we're not hearing something else, being told something else, that's, oh my God, they're saying this or doing that. And it just, people can just be pros on that side of the fence.
Well, and the cool part is we've got this medium with microphones and an audience, and every time we hear them doing something, we're just going to talk about it. So we know you guys listen to the show.
Some things we still kept under wraps. I mean,
well, no, we definitely have things under wraps that we're,
yeah, we're not going to do everything. And we don't like, I really would like to have a series of episodes where what they're doing doesn't get brought to our attention and doesn't get, something that we feel we got to talk about.
Yeah. Just want to run it in peace. All right.
That's right.
Well, let's take this opportunity to thank some of our members. So I want to give a shout out to our Prestige members. Our Prestige members are our highest tier of membership. I want to thank Miss Mandy, 1983, Lil Mac, 21, Brian Hauser, Logan Lipper, 330T, and Aaron Board. Thank you for supporting us at the highest tier of Prestige Pass membership. If you'd like to become a member, there's a link in the description. Members get early access to content. They get exclusive content. We're going to have members only live streams. And at some tiers, you get free stuff. So we'd love to have you as a Tower Topic member because that is the best way to support the show. So we'll be right back with your stories then. All right. Today's story, it's from Christopher K. from Muncie, Indiana. And Christopher actually supplied a photo. So let me get that all queued up here and stuff. But I appreciate, while I'm doing this, if anybody wants to send in their stories, Don, why don't you tell them how to do it?
Well, what you want to do is send me an email. It's at donhelbig@themeparksbydon.com. Put in the subject line "story for TT," so I know how to separate it from all the other emails that come in, and just share your story. It can be about a visit you had that was memorable. Maybe you worked at the park. Maybe you met your spouse there. Just anything, character interaction, whatever it might be. We'd love to hear your stories, and we'd love to share it with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So we appreciate it. So without further adu, this is our fine guest tonight. So this is Christopher K. from Muncie, Indiana. He said, "Great job with the show, Ryan and Don. I would like to share one of my stories about Kings Island. The year was 2014, my senior year of high school. A group of friends and I went to Kings Island for our senior skip day. Hell yeah. I was scared to ride the roller coasters, but my friends started me out on the Red Racer. I loved it. Then we went over to Flight of Fear. I was asking my friends if Flight of Fear went upside down because I was terrified to go upside down. They reassured me that it did not go upside down. I got on the ride and found out it went upside down, but I found out that I enjoyed it. Then we went to ride Firehawk, Vortex, the Beast, and Diamondback, and then Banshee. I even got to experience the first night ride on the Beast. It was truly my best day ever. Diamondback was the only coaster that was a little too intense for me. Flash forward to November 2nd, 2024. I was scared, but decided to face my fears and give Diamondback another chance. I rode it and loved it so much that I rode it 3 times. Then I went over to ride Orion for the first time. I'm very glad that I overcame my fears and cannot wait to ride again in 2025. Love that story.
I do too, and really love the picture too. Remember the 50th anniversary, a lot of memories, from that year for so many of our guests. But thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, definitely enjoyable. I'm glad. It looks like this was probably the day of the actual birthday of Kings Island.
It looks to be, April 29th when they had the cake and everything that they brought out near the bandstand. So it does look to be that day.
That's the very memorable day. The ceremony itself ran a little long. The Honorable Gary Walks, who I love, spoke way too long. He made Dennis Spiegel seem short, but it was one of those things where I was so glad that I could be there. It was such an honor, and it was cool to meet the family that opened the park for the first time 50 years ago. In addition to kind of reconnecting with a bunch of former GMs and stuff that are maybe not in the industry anymore or have retired and so on. So, Christopher, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. But yeah, so Don, let's talk about hooded sweatshirts.
Not just hooded sweatshirts. We're talking about full zip hooded sweatshirts. It comes with the Tower Topics logo. Yeah, it's true. Tower Topics logo on the front chest, and on the back, the big Tower Topics logo, ash gray color. Very comfortable sweatshirt. With the temperatures now cooler, it's the perfect kind of apparel, to wear those early days of Winterfest. I think you'll love the sweatshirt. Very comfortable, again, as I said, and they're just $50. That includes the shipping. If you're interested in one, send us a direct message on our X, which is Tower_Topics. If you're not following us there, be sure to do so, and we'll send you the QR code. If you are not on X, you can still reach out, that same email address, to send the stories, donhelbig@themeparksbydon.com, to say you're interested in the full zip hooded sweatshirt. I'll send you the QR code, and we'll go from there. But once the transaction goes through, just a matter of days to get your shirt.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Love to see this around. I've been seeing pictures of people wearing them and everything, and it's super exciting. We'll be right back with the listener questions. All right. First listener question. Richard L., Loveland, Ohio. How does the quality of the ice surface for Snowflake Lake at Winterfest compare to the local ice rinks in Evendale and Northern Kentucky? Don, when was the last time you skated on Northern Kentucky's sheet?
It wasn't that long ago, maybe like 4 years ago, after I had come back to play hockey. Played a pickup game there. Terrible ice in
Yeah.
Northern Kentucky. That rink it's a dump. When it first opened, it was kind of nice back in the early '80s, but it's now a dump. Terrible ice. The Winterfest ice, much better than that. It's better than Sports Plus, whatever name it's going by. This week at
Yeah, it changed
Lincolnville.
names.
Yeah, so it's better ice, I think, than that. I give Northland Ice Center the edge for having the best ice in the area. You're looking to get some public skating in, but the ice at Winterfest, they do a great job, keeping that ice in great condition. The weather, it's unpredictable, in this part of the country. You get some rain and stuff, and some days it's really cold. The next day, it's 55 degrees after it was 22 the day before. But they always, the ice is always in great shape. It's very smooth. I think it's one of the best ice surfaces that I've skated on, for any kind of an outdoor rink or even indoor skating rinks, just to do public skating.
I think that the times I've skated on it, it's held up rather well for having like 1,000 people on it. I agree. It's better than Northern Kentucky. Northland's, I remember, was mainly good, but it had an area over by the goalie crease that like the concrete was coming through. This was years ago, so they probably resheeted it since then. So that was kind of bad. Gardens ice was better. Cincinnati Gardens.
Oh, Cincinnati Gardens had fantastic ice.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of on par with Heritage Bank Center. If you've ever skated there, the one time I skated there, it was like a B+ sheet. It was pretty good. Now a B+ sheet sorry, I keep wanting to say US Bank Arena, but for Heritage Bank Center is like an A++ sheet for an outdoor place.
Yeah.
So they like you said, they do a pretty good job. And then comparing it to Fountain Square is a little bit worse than this. But I feel like Fountain Square is in some sort of
snow. Too much snow gets built up on the ice at Fountain Square.
It does, and it gets too wet too. Like I feel like it's always got puddles in it. So I don't know. All right. Well, thanks for the question, Richard. Don, you want to take the second one?
Yeah. We have Steve A. from Bond Hill, Ohio. Not too far from Cincinnati Gardens, where
I was just going to say.
Yeah. He says, what are your thoughts on the Pass Perks program this year? He said, personally, I was again disappointed. So Ryan, I mean, you're more into, that than, all the different rewards and that. I visit the park, I'd see the different rewards and that come through, but I never took advantage of any of them. But, you're someone that, that was important to you. Every year they'd roll out the program. You're always interested in how it was going to work. So what were your thoughts on Pass Perks for 2024?
I'm glad it's a thing. I feel like me and several other people never really got the full program because I still in my app do not have it. So it shows me like how many more visits till my next award and stuff. I never got that update. I'm using an iPhone. So that update came up first. I actually did use one. It was like 35% off of the anniversary merchandise. So I bought what did I buy? I think I bought the Beast mug with it. I did appreciate that. Percentages off merchandise and stuff, that kind of stuff works because the whole point of this stuff, it's not so much to drive visits. They're going to say it is, but nobody's going to visit the park because of fun perks or park perks or whatever. Pass Perks, that's what they're calling it this year. Fun Perks was like 15 years ago. But no one's going to visit the park to up that. I think that if the park thinks that people are doing that, they're delusional. But what they can do is give people opportunities to spend money in instances where they wouldn't. It's going to drive that behavior. So for me, I liked the Beast mug, but I didn't like $15 like it. But I certainly $11 liked it.
Mm-hmm.
So I got that perk. It was only good for about 3 days. I was at the park anyway, so I went ahead and bought it. That's the kind of stuff where it really drives it. Now, a lot of it is running into the problem that we all knew was going to happen. 10% off Jukebox Diner. Well, that's great, but I get Jukebox Diner for free. And even stuff like funnel cake. Like, I really feel like the whole buy one, get one half off and stuff like that is really a cop out, because I don't think a lot of people take advantage of it. I don't have the data in front of me to prove it or disprove it, but I feel like that's just kind of taking up space to look like there are more rewards. Because if they wanted to give 25% off a funnel cake, that might entice people to buy. But I don't, it's kind of like when American Eagle has those sales that are like buy one pair of jeans, get another one half off. For most people, they walk in, they're like, oh, you have to buy one, get one, because people aren't in the market for two.
Right.
And I think that was the case with the funnel cakes and stuff like that as well. Let me see if I can see anything that populates in the Kings Island app right now, just so I have a reference point. It might have cleared out since we're at the end of operations and now we're on to Winterfest. But looking at the ones that I have on my thing now, it's discount reward, 25% off games. Okay. To me, that's almost an exception to what I just said, because I feel like buy one, get one midway games might be a little bit better, where you get to play twice for $10 as opposed to once. 25% off games. I mean, yeah, that's actually a decent one. I'll give them an A- on that. One free gold pass, bring a friend ticket. That's a very valuable reward right there. God, I've got a ton of these built up. One free hot chocolate. That's nice, but I have the drink plan plus, so I get free hot chocolate anyway, I think. And this does not include specialty hot chocolate, so it's worthless to me. But extra 20% off merchandise, menu, snacks, or entrees. So that's one thing that they did really well. They stacked the discounts. It's not 20% off, unable to be combined with other discounts. It's 20% off, and I believe that's in addition to your 10% off for being a pass holder. So that's 30% off. They mathed it that way. That's the right way to do it, because there are food items and stuff that are not on the meal plan that I wouldn't mind trying, and I really wouldn't mind saving 30% on. And I look at this thing, and if this thing comes up when I visit the park, it might be like, you know what, let's try that dessert at the sweets, well, not the sweet spot, that probably doesn't cut, but the dessert at the Fest House, the Tannenbaum House, or the Blitzen's Brew House, or whatever, So I would say that the program's got a long way to go. The sample that I'm looking at now actually is that this is pretty decent. I would say this is like a flat A, because this offers a lot of value. Now, with that being said, this is my first time looking at it in probably 3 months. So all this stuff built up over the past couple months. So it's not exactly accomplishing what they want to accomplish with it. But I still think that, 5 years later, maybe they're getting it. What they need to do, though, is find a way to make it so you can, spending money and all that stuff is something tangible as far as your next reward. With Fun Perks back in 2010 or 11 or whatever, was like, I intentionally would be like, okay, I'm going to buy a cookie at the Sweet Spot or whatever it was called at the time, because I'm so close to the next award. And the next award was like a surprise, and they had good stuff, high perceived value, low cost. That's what they did. So the buy one, get one tickets, free tickets, free fast lane is something that was at the highest tier. I wish they would have kept that program, but it's a different landscape now with the meal plans and the drink plans. Yeah. But great.
I think with what you're saying, though, to me, it sounds a lot better than the conversation you and I would have had about this 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
It would have been a very short episode, because they talked about it and then it never happened. Because remember, they would randomly send you an email with the prize, but not everybody would get a prize. It would be like some people would get 3 and other people would go 5 years without getting any. And some of the stuff was weird too. Like if you're a prestige member, you'd sometimes get a thing for a free entrance into the VIP lounge, which you already had access to. And it was like part of your season pass, I think. So it wasn't transferable. I don't know. It seems like it's way more streamlined now. I think that the front end, as far as how it's presented and how they use that to drive sales, that can use some work. But as far as like the prizes that they're giving out, at least what I'm looking at right now, I think is pretty cool. Cool. So thank you, Steve from Bond Hill. And I'm sorry if you purchased a house in Bond Hill thinking that you'd be conveniently located close to the Cincinnati Gardens. that would be my one reason to want to move to Bond Hill. Actually, I got some friends that live in some of the areas back there, but cool. Hey, I'm Ryan Sir along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.